Following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers. This is the TFangy coming to you with what will hopefully be a successful review. And tonight we're going to be taking a look at a Transformers action figure that not just I, but other Transformers fans and collectors have been waiting since the year 1985 for an action figure of this character, and it is Transformers Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Autobot Devcon. So yes, he has finally arrived. I can't remember if this is the first ever action figure of Devcon. I thought there was an action figure of him released at BotCon or maybe a third-party figure. I honestly cannot say, but this is the first Hasbro mass retail released action figure of Devcon on ever, and I am just super thrilled to finally have an action figure of him. So for those of you who don't know who is Devcon, Devcon is a character from the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon who was created for the cartoon show by Sumbo Productions. He did transform into his alt mode, and this new action figure of him in the Legacy Evolution line does successfully replicate that. But the point is, Devcon was an Autobot bounty hunter who was traveling the galaxy, collecting bounties, and after appearing in one episode during the second season of the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon, the episode title was The Gambler. A long story short, Optimus Prime and a group of Autobots ended up traveling to the opposite side of the galaxy, and on their way back to planet Earth, they ended up getting stuck and held hostage at an intergalactic casino owned by, I guess you would call him an intergalactic mob boss. And the only Autobot who managed to avoid being captured was Smokescreen, and so Smokescreen teamed up with Devcon, and the two of them fought back against the Gambler, hence the episode's title. By the end of the episode, Devcon went off on his own with an alien named Sleazardo. Sleazardo did appear again in a single episode of the third season of the G1 cartoon, but because Devcon was nowhere to be seen, it's been speculated since then what happened to him. So because Devcon was a one-episode character originally created for the G1 cartoon series, Transformers fans and collectors believe that he was one of the Transformers characters who, because of his exclusion to the G1 cartoon and having not actually had an action figure originally, that he was never going to be given an action figure. So it was a very big thrill for fans and collectors everywhere when Hasbro announced that Devcon not only was going to be given a deluxe class figure in the Legacy Evolution line, but that he would be released at mass retail and not as an exclusive. So that was really nice to see him being released there. Devcon is, I believe, one of the 4 action figures. I can't remember if he's Wave 3 or Wave 4 of the Legacy Evolution line. I picked up a whole bunch of the Legacy Evolution action figures for my birthday at the end of July. And then some of them I got a week after at the beginning of August. So I've had a whole bunch of Transformers Legacy Evolution action figures for the last 2 months now. Just to give you guys an idea of how far behind I am in my Transformers reviews, if you can't already tell by the wall of Transformers action figures that's behind me in every video I make, I have roughly 43 Transformers action figures to review. Some of them are box sets, so I believe I have close to 50 individual Transformers action figures that I have to review. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to finish playing catch up with my Transformers reviews because quick announcement, I do have a brand new job that starts this coming Monday, and that's why I've been distracted with getting reviews now, is trying to prepare for that. And it's why I got my hair cut, in case any of you guys are wondering. But yeah, bringing focus here back to Devcon. Here we got a picture of him in his alt mode, and that is accurate to the hovercraft alt mode that he had in the G1 cartoon. So I'm really excited that Hasbro and Takara Tomy, the designers, are able to replicate Devcon's alt mode that was originally created by Sumbo Productions. Now right here, this side to the other side of the box, you've got a close-up of Devcon's head sculpt alt, and you got a zoomed out version of that same image where you see Devcon springing into battle with his laser gun drawn. And I'm really, and it's just, again, I'm speechless that the designers at Hasbro and Takara Tomy were able to replicate Sumbo Productions' animation model for Devcon because, to my knowledge, before this action figure was released, East, this is East, pretty much all that Devcon had to him was his animation model from the G1 cartoon, so it's really nice to see that in plastic form. And that's one thing that a lot of the Legacy Evolution action figures that have not been Generation 1 characters, everyone's been complaining that they've been turned to G1 characters and blah, blah, wine, they're not accurate to the source material. So Devcon is somewhat unique compared to a lot of the other action figures that have been released in the Legacy Evolution line because he actually is from the G1 cartoon. So he is screen accurate and G1 cartoon accurate all the way. So that is nice. So that does make him unique compared to the other action figures that have been released in the Legacy Evolution line. And I'm going to say this in a lot of my upcoming reviews for, especially for the deluxe class sized action figures of the Legacy Evolution line. But for Devcon here, this is the first and currently only action figure of him that I have in my Transformers collection. I believe out of roughly 10 deluxe class action figures that I have in the Legacy Evolution line, I believe Eve, Eve out of 10 of them that I still have to review, I believe there's only 5 of them that I'm sorry, there's only 3 of them that I have other action figures of, but the rest, apart from those 3, so there's roughly 7 deluxe class figures from the Legacy Evolution line in my Transformers collection. That these are the first and only action figures of these Transformers characters that I have. I said that in my review of Buzzworthy Tow line a couple of weeks ago. Oh, and I'm going to keep saying that with a lot of the Legacy Evolution deluxe figures here, just like Devcon. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I've been collecting all of the Legacy Evolution deluxe class figures in particular, because these are all action figures of Transformers characters that I didn't previously have in my Transformers collection, and that's been my focus when it comes to buying brand new Transformers action figures. I put action figures of Transformers characters that I don't have in my collection first before ones that I do have, unless they are brand spanking new versions of previous characters that haven't been released in several years, such as Armada, Optimus Prime, and Armada Megatron. But yes, bringing focus back here to Devcon, and you've got image of him in his robot mode and his alt mode, which is a Cybertronian hovercraft. He transforms back and forth between both modes in 13 steps. There's the stupid Evo Fusion gimmick where you can take his engine thrusters and mount them on his laser gun, and if you desire, and give him a triple-barreled laser gun, if you wish. And I can't remember in the G1 cartoon if Devcon held his laser gun or if he deployed it from his arm or if he could do both. By the way, Devcon only comes with one single laser gun, and it plugs onto the bottom of the nose section of his alt mode. Oh, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So as I said, Devcon is an Autobot bounty hunter. So there was at least one Transformers character who was a bounty hunter back in the days of Transformers Generation 1, but because Hasbro has never really, I'm sorry to use this word, acknowledged Devcon as a Transformers character. The G1 episode of The Gambler is his only appearance in official Transformers media to this day. Whether or not his new Legacy Evolution action figure is going to make Hasbro want to use him in a future Transformers cartoon series is uncertain. But considering the fact that it took 38 years from the time he was introduced for Hasbro to release a action figure of him at mass retail, I got a feeling that Devcon's always going to take a back seat. And as far as popularity compared to other Transformers characters, I think Devcon's going to be one of the most obscure Transformers characters that you can get. For me personally, The Gambler, it's not one of my favorite episodes of the G1 cartoon show, I do have to admit, but but the few times that I've watched it, I do enjoy seeing Devcon team up with Smokescreen to save Optimus Prime and the Autobots. So without further delay, let's get Devcon out of his box and take a close look at him in robot mode. Alright, so here's Devcon out of the box and transformed into his robot mode, and yeah, speechless at how the designers are able to replicate his animation model from the G1 cartoon. I don't think Devcon has appeared in any of the Transformers comic books or video games in more recent years, so yeah, he's, as I said a moment ago, he's as obscure as Transformers characters get, even though everyone recognizes him from the Gambler. So hopefully Devcon will become a more prominent Transformers character someday, but for now, it's still a thrill to finally have an action figure of him. Just like other characters that were designed originally for the Transformers G1 cartoon, such as Alpha Trion, Ion, for years, Transformers fans and collectors didn't think that those Transformers characters would ever be given action figures, so it's really great that Hasbro and Tomy are at least acknowledging the Transformers characters that were originally created by Sumbo Productions for the G1 cartoon back in the 1980s. As far as placement for Devcon's thrusters, whereas on his instruction sheet it says that if you don't want him to actually hold them in his hands, you can plug them here onto the back of his shins. And I don't know if Devcon was able to fly. It's been a while since I've watched the episode of The Gambler, but it is, you do have options, and the thrusters aren't. It's not two copies of the same weapon. As you can see here by the off-center 5mm pegs, they are the thrusters are mirror images of each other. So if you wanted to, you could have the thrusters also sit here on his back. You can have them close together like sound waves, batteries, if you want. But if you don't want them to look like a scuba tank and you want it to look more like a pair of rocket boosters, you can have them more widespread if you want. They are made out of the same blue plastic that's used on Devcon. So as far as I can tell, all the parts on Devcon that are red paint. The only red parts of Devcon that are actual red plastic are his robot mode feet, but his ankles, these shield guards he has on his wrist, his Autobot logo, and then of course his thrusters. It's all red paint. So it is a shame that Hasbro and Tomy decided that paint was a better route than actual plastic for those parts. At least for the engine thrusters, I would have preferred if that had been made out of red plastic instead of red paint. And it's pretty much the only part of it that's the actual blue plastic of it is the 5mm port itself. So, right, but whenever Hasbro and Tomy release a part of a Transformers action figure where 90% of it is painted over because they actually wanted it to be that color, but then they decided using the same color plastic as the rest of the figure was more energy efficient, I just kind of makes me wonder why they can't, why they really don't have the money to make it the color plastic they'd want it to be anyways. It's the same thing actually also with Devcon's laser gun. Now that I'm looking at it, if you can tell by the handle in Devcon's hand, it's the same blue plastic that Devcon is. It's just painted silver, and just like the red parts, I believe all of the parts on Devcon that are silver are in fact silver paint, and the only parts of him that are quote unquote silver plastic are the gray plastic bits, such as his upper legs. His elbow joints are gray plastic, and also the top of his chest that his head sits on, and that's gray plastic as well. But again, it's really impressive how they were able to match up his animation model. There's again a close-up of Devcon's head sculpt. For articulation, his head is technically on a ball joint, but it can only go up and down like 1mm, maybe 1cm at the most. So it's pretty much you only have the swivel that can go left and right 360 degrees. The arms have the potential to spin 360 degrees, but you do have to get the arm angled out of the way so you can avoid hitting Devcon's backpack when you go backwards with it. Swivel joint. You do technically have a swivel joint in the bicep, but the way it's sculpted right there, it only swivels on the lower arm right above the elbow. Hinge joints in the elbows, no wrist articulation due to how the hands fold away into the lower arms when you transform the figure into vehicle mode. Waist swivel, both left and right 360 degrees. It's not hindered by the backpack. Actually, that's nice to see. Universal jointed hips, so if you get the arms out of the way, the leg can go forward that far, can go back this far. But if you have the engine thrusters here on the back, you do want to avoid hitting it with the leg. Hey, so Devcon can do the full splits if you want to see him do that. He does technically have a swivel joint in the top of the thigh, but because of the boxy shape on the back of his hips, the range of it is very limited. Hinge joint in the knee, so the knee can go back that far. And he does have ankle rockers, so if you want to get him into a sprawl-legged pose, you can do that. No ankle rockers or anything. But yeah, Devcon does have a decent amount of articulation. And for those of you who've been collecting Transformers action figures for the past few years, you might recognize from the shape of his feet that Devcon is not an entirely original mold. He is, in fact, he does have parts that are recycled from a previously Transformers action figure, specifically the Transformers Studio Series 86 Deluxe Class Blurr figure that was released back in 2021. So yeah, when it was announced that Devcon was going to be basically an extensive retool of Blurr, of Studio Series 86 Blurr, a lot of Transformers fans and collectors didn't think that Devcon would be given enough retool parts to the point that that he is a distinguished enough of a character that he's not like you don't just go, oh, that's a repainted Blurr. It's like you can't really tell if you don't even, especially if you don't have the Studio Series 86 Blurr figure, you can't really tell unless you're told by someone else that Devcon is a retool of this figure and not an entirely brand new mold. So yeah, I give a praise to the designers for not only making Devcon on screen accurate, but making him distinguished enough from Blurr that it's really hard to tell that they're mold mates if you don't give them a detailed glance over. So that's pretty nice to see. And for one last size comparison in robot mode, here is Devcon next to the Transformers character he interacted with the most. Here is Smokescreen. This is the most recent action figure of Smokescreen that's been released. It's the Earthrise version from 2020. So yeah, there's Devcon and Smokescreen. It's been a while since I've transformed Smokescreen, so I was holding him by his foot, but it's loose on my copy. So yeah, there's Devcon next to Smokescreen, and so it's really nice to see them standing beside each other. And that's pretty much all there is to say, so let's get Devcon transformed into his alt mode and wrap up the review. Alright, and so here is Devcon transformed into his alt mode of a Cybertronian. I keep calling it a hovercraft, but I think it's actually supposed to be a spaceship, just like Brainstorm or what other Autobots transform into spaceships that are this size. I guess to a point, well, you could argue Cosmos is, even though he's a flying saucer. But yeah, this is basically Devcon's alt mode. It's very accurate to his animation model from Sunbow Productions. I really enjoyed. He's got some wings that angle downward here on the back of him. And then, of course, you got the engine thrusters here on the back. And again, they are mirrored from each other. The peg is off center so that it can plug right here onto the back and act without bumping into the sculpt and detailing. So, unfortunately, the thrusters do have assigned left and right spots sides of Devcon. So if you try and switch the thrusters on their positions, they're not going to plug into place properly. But I don't care because I'm just really thrilled to finally have an action figure of Devcon in my Transformers collection. Just like Studio Series 86 Blurr that he's retooled from, the only real weapon storage for the laser gun is plugging it here beneath the nose of the vehicle mode and have a cannon and sticking out the bottom of it. One nice thing about Devcon that I do enjoy is that depending on how you transform the figure from robot mode to vehicle mode, the final step is to put this this piece, which was part of the backpack, over the Autobot logo on the robot mode chest, and in his final scene before he blasts off into space at the end of the episode he appears in, this part opens up, and that is the opening for Devcon's cockpit. So I love how you can replicate his final scene where he asks Cesardo to if he wants to travel through space with him. So yeah, you can acknowledge that. So that's a nice touch that the designers are able to give you the option of replicating the scene where Devcon, the cockpit of his vehicle mode opens up. There isn't really too much sculpted detailing inside of it. It's just meant to line up with the surface that it plugs onto. But yeah, overall, I think that this is one of the better figures of the Legacy Evolution line that we've gotten. And so for size comparisons, here he is once again with Studio Series 86 Blurr. Blurr is slightly longer when you line them up from the backmost parts of them, which are the engine thrusters, others, but that's partially due to Blurr's laser gun being longer. If you were to take the laser guns out, they are roughly the same aim length from back to front. But yeah, it really is amazing that the designers at Hasbro and Tomy took this and pun intended, transformed it into this. So yeah, that's really nice there. And once again, for a size comparison, here's Devcon next to the character he interacts with most in the G1 cartoon, which is Smokescreen. So here's Earthrise Smokescreen. And yeah, the Studio Series 86 Blurr mold, it's roughly the same size as the Earthrise Datsun in Transformers. In vehicle mode, it does end up slightly bigger due to the nose cone from the backpack coming out here to the front. But yes, I'm just overjoyed to finally have an action figure of Devcon in my Transformers collection. So for the action, and then of course, there's 5mm ports all over. They're all hexagon shaped so that the weapons don't roll out. There's even one here on the side. There's even ones on either side of the laser gun. So if you wanted to plug 5mm either accessory pieces onto all of the 5mm ports that are to be found on Devcon, including the ones on his laser gun. There are a grand total of, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There are a grand total of 12 5mm ports found on Devcon. You got 2 on the laser gun, 2 here on the robot mode shoulder, 2 here on the side thrusters. You got 2 here on the bottom of his robot mode feet. And then, of course, you've got 4 on all 4 of the thrusters on the back of him. So yeah, you could really arm up Devcon if you wanted to. And considering the fact that he's a bounty hunter, it makes sense that he'd have a lot of weapons on him. One of the reasons why I hope that Devcon does, Hasbro does decide to use Devcon in a future Transformers series is so that I would love for Devcon to get into a bounty hunter versus bounty hunter battle with Lockdown. And so, ever since Lockdown was introduced, I remembered that Devcon was an Autobot bounty hunter, so just always like to see the clash of the bounty hunters between Devcon and Lockdown. And so I really hope that becomes reality someday. So do I recommend getting the Transformers Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Devcon action figure and adding it to your Transformers collection? Absolutely. Get this figure, add it to your collection. You won't regret. Edit. And considering the fact that it took 38 years for Hasbro to release Devcon, this is probably going to be the only action figure of Devcon that exists for a long time. If you aren't able to go completist on the Legacy Evolution line, this is definitely one of the deluxe class Transformers figures to get for your Transformers collection is Devcon. And so I cannot emphasize enough how much of a necessity and must-have figure that Devcon is. He is definitely top tier for the Legacy Evolution line, in my opinion. So thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been the TF Geek. This has been in my review of Transformers Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Autobot Devcon. Get this figure if you can. And until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you to all my subscribers for your continued support. And until next time, you guys, Transformer will out. Goodbye, everyone.